There's always a better way to do what you're doing right now. So be grateful. Now they're just like, oh my gosh, there's so much more to do, right? And I was like, no, programmatic is where my heart is. Amen. Welcome to another episode of the Programmatic Digest podcast. I am your host, Hélène Parker. I am doing a solo episode on the importance of QAing as a programmatic ninja. So before we get into today's conversation, one of the reasons why I always advocate for QA time and QA is because I hear a lot of errors that are created by humans, right? Because a previous QA process was not implemented. So hang tight. This is a short solo episode that's going to highlight the importance of QAing, what it is actually, the importance of QAing, and then everything you need to do for any holiday. So this is the holiday season as I'm recording this in December. I did post a blog on our LinkedIn and on our website, heleneparker.com, about everything you need to do, like the 5 steps to QAing before holiday, so that you avoid any mistakes, you avoid any overall underspend. And it's been having a lot of traction, and a lot of y'all needed to find more information. So this podcast is explaining a little bit of what I already started in the blog, and everything will be added in the job description. What do we mean when we talk about QA? Quality assurance. How can we ensure that what we're doing is the top, most highest quality ever? It's very simple. At the same time, it can be very complex, and I would say maybe very complicated. And it is one of those things that is constantly pushed to the side as not as a priority. So what I mean by that is I've seen very much a lot of teams rush to get a campaign on. You got to get this campaign on, the spend is, we got to spend, we got to start launching this campaign. And then the next thing you know, there are some major errors being made because we did not prioritize this QA process that I'm referring to. So when you hear QAing, it's simply, are you checking back your work? Okay. Are you, whoever set up the work, whoever implemented the system, whoever is leading, have you spent some time after the first wave of creation to really review every single step you've done? So for example, I'll take an example of a programmatic trader setting up their campaign in a DSP, let's say. I have seen multiple times where a daily budget was added mistakenly. Okay. So instead of adding the monthly budget, or to make sure that the monthly budget, that number is set to spend the full month, it's accidentally have selected as daily. So instead of spending that 10K during that month, you start spending 10K a day. So those are very, very, very easy mistakes to make. And I've made several of those that could be caught had you taken the time to review your own work, because you can easily catch your mistake like, oh, wait, what is this? Oh, no, let me edit it really quick, right? Or you can have somebody else QA. So here are the steps that you should consider implementing today, not to say yesterday. When it comes to creation, when it comes to launching a new project, a new campaign, a new strategy, there's this phase called planning. You usually are in contact or conversation with the client where you shared goals, tactic, overarching strategy, KPIs. During this process of planning, that's when the QA process actually starts, because this is the document you use to create the rest of the campaign, right? To actually execute the buy. So the first line of defense here, or rather attack, is to review that media plan to make sure that everything makes sense. Because if you're saying that, for instance, we sold, I don't know, CTV at a $2 CPM, and I'm really much exaggerating for the example here, so don't send me hate mails. But if you see that this was sold, really address the question right away, because it's almost impossible. I don't know what you're buying. I don't know what type of CTV inventory you're buying at $2, basically. I know it's the worst example, but it's an example to make the point. So your first line of attack or defense, whichever you are, start with the media plan. Review the media plan before you have any any start of the campaign, right? And make sure you ask questions to that project manager or that account manager, to really address some of those weird nuances that you see on the media plan. The second thing I would say is that as a programmatic team, you should probably have a kickoff call internally and externally. So with the client and without the client. Why? Because you always want to be prepared internally before asking questions externally, but also like you get to talk and get very specific and detail oriented, like really detail specific in an internal meeting versus like an external meeting with a client. Like the client is not going to care which brand safety vendor or partner you're going with unless specifically asked, right? So those would be the pre-QA workout, right? Like the pre-QA process starts with the media plan. It starts with the internal QA. Like what exactly did we talk about with the client and what is in this document? Is everybody on the same page? All deliverables on the same page? Talking about deliverables, we talk about deadline during this internal kickoff. It's super important, y'all. Because as an account manager, we really want to over deliver for our clients, as we should, okay? However, you don't want to set up your programmatic team. If you're telling this client that you have a multi-channel, multi-strategy, let's say $250,000 to spend in the next 60 days or 90 days, and then everything will be set up in three days. I mean, come on. 3 days to set up such a big strategy, because I'm going to positively assume that $250,000 in a budget spend in programmatic at least, you have several mini strategies, you have a lot of nuance, a lot of steps to add, like tracking, creative, and all that stuff. So it would be almost impossible to set something like that in 3 days, right? Because even in the perfect world, you need to have implementation, like you need to have room for those traders to really bounce off ideas, to really, test, or not test, but really ask questions about the different tests they are allowed to do and things like that. Anyway.
Hi, did you know that at Ellen Parker Consulting, we now offer an accelerator program where we attract, recruit, and train future marketers. And their training includes a 6 weeks program where they cover programmatic landscape, important industry trends, the differences between targeting placement and targeting mix, and their best practices, including optimization and reporting hacks. And they're able to set up, manage, and monitor a demo campaign in the trade desk, everything including audience selection, inventory optimization, SPO, creative upload, brand safety, you name it. They're able to do it at the end of the 6 weeks program. So if you are part of the 90% of employers struggling to find a skilled candidate today and not willing to spend $14,900 on a bad hire, according to Zippia, give us a call. Let's discuss which one of our 5 to 10 juniors available every month is the perfect fit for your team. Clients who have hired our juniors have shared that we were able to help them save 1 to 2 months onboarding with those juniors. Give us a call right now and let's discuss the solution with you.
That would be a good time during your internal kickoff to talk about the deliverables and then the deadlines. Okay, definitely the deadlines. And please have some fluff. If you can set up this $250,000, again, for the sake of the example, if you can set up this $250,000 campaign in 3 days, great. But add some fluff. You never know. We're not robots. Somebody might be sick. Somebody's child might be sick that day. You always want to plan ahead. Let's recap the last 3 minutes, right? So your QA process start with the media plan before you even start your creation. Ask all the questions you need to understand. If there's any nuances, if there's any recommendation to make at that time, if there's any timelines discussion and deliverables discussion, this is the best time to do it. And then after that, make sure you over communicate with the rest of the team when you're getting those when you're hitting those launch timeline. Okay. Now let's get into the QA. So now you have a media plan, everything makes sense. You know what KPI you're going to be optimizing for, so you know how to set up in the DSP. The next thing I will recommend is setting up the campaign, taking a break, walk around, come back the next day maybe, and then QAing your own work, okay? So the reason why I recommend a break between your setup, your completion of the complete setup, and your own QA before anybody else's QA is because you're going to come back with a fresher mind. You're going to come back with like more energized. Hopefully you're not coming back at midnight, right? Hopefully you took a nap at least. And so by coming back and having that refreshed mind, you'll be able to really identify like, oh, this is what I should have done. So you set up your campaign one day or that morning, take a few breaks, take a nap, eat really well, hydrate, take your vitamins, and then come back to do your own QA, okay? And then review your QA notes. And when I say QA, y'all, let's not just review everything by visually. So you look at your media map or your media plan, and you're like, oh, okay, here's the CPM. Okay, cool. Have an actual document outside of that media plan or media map where you are asked those specific questions about how you created that campaign in your DSP, so that you can check yourself with this separate document. So the document should literally be almost the information on that QA list that I'm referring to, that one QA document, should be almost like a good document to send to new traders that are learning how to set up, right? Because they'll be able to say, oh, well, based on this QA sheet, I should always make sure that there are dates saved. I should make sure that naming convention is as follow. I should make sure that frequency standards for this campaign or for this industry or for our agency standard frequency standards or at that, So that sheet should almost be the how to set up a campaign with a checklist. Like, did you do this? If yes, what did you write? So that whoever is checking your work is going to use this document, and they're going to use their own document to verify everything. I know I'm talking about a lot of documents, but trust me, when you start spending $4,000 in one day instead of 30 days, you're going to want to have as many documents to hold you accountable and to give you insight in those mistakes, like in how to prevent those mistakes. So let's recap. Now you've created your campaign. Now you've taken your break, you hydrated in the middle, you've eaten your tacos, you've come back to QA your work. My recommendation is to have a QA checklist that is separate from your media plan. On your QA checklist, you should almost have literally a checklist or like a table where you can verify that a date has been inputted, the budget has been inputted, that monthly budget has been set, that pacing has been set instead of maybe pacing ASAP. Maybe you want to start ahead or even, things like that. So that QA document is what you can use to easily check on yourself. Okay, it's almost like robotic. Like, oh, did I do that? Boom, boom. This is what I did. Boom, boom. This is what I did. And now the next person that's going to come QA your own work is going to use that document to help, and then it's going to also use the media plan to finish the queue. Okay, if you're asking yourself, you just heard my whole rant for the last 7 minutes or so, and you're still asking yourself, like, I don't know if I need a QA sheet. Have you ever overspent? Have you ever input the wrong budget? Have you uploaded the wrong creative and a tactic? Have you set up your campaign to success? Everything was good to go. Everything looked hella sexy and forgot to turn on something. Have you set up a tactic and realized that after 2 days, nothing was spending, like nothing, but everything was activated, the right creative was on, everything was within the right timeline? I mean, that date. Have you, what else have you? I'm sure like some of y'all are listening and say, oh, I've done this before. Have you ever like set up in an ad server, let's say CM360 or MediaOcean, and then send your tags and then nothing is firing, right? Have you had your campaign on for several weeks, sometimes like a week or two, with no conversions? Okay, even though tracking is firing and everything like that. Those are all human-based mistakes that could be caught during the QA process before a campaign is launched. And here's something else I would say. After the campaign is launched, you should have a post-QA. Oh shit, Ellen, how many more documents you want me to have? Like, I'm gonna have so much documents. Sis, my brother, you want these documents. You want a QA doc, where you are verifying everything is correct, and that second person verify in the platform, in the media plan, and on your sheet, right? It's almost like they're grading you. And then you're launching your campaign 1 to 2 days later, not more than 48 hours after activating. Somebody needs to come, whether it's you should always QA your own work, okay? First of all. So that QA person, your QA buddy, needs to come back and verify that things are launching correctly, everything is firing, to catch those launch mistakes. You know what I mean? And so by doing a post-launch QA, you're able to catch very early on when, let's say when you're not, like when a tag is not firing, even if you went through the pre-QA launch, right? Because there are situations where the tag looks good, everything is set up correctly, but then something happens on the client's website and then it's still not firing, something like that, okay? So that's why I recommend a pre-QA, to recommend to have a QA buddy that's verifying everything after you. A post-QA up to 48 hours after launching everything. As soon as you see impressions come through, conversions and clicks come through, I think it's fair to start the post-QA. And the post-QA is usually shorter because it's literally just, again, everything is good, all the tags firing. And then 2 weeks in, it's super important to do a QA again. Why, Hélène? We checked out the pre-QA, everything looks good. The 2-day post-QA is fine. Why would it need 2 weeks in? Because there's been several times where, especially with working with third-party vendor, where the tag failed for some reason, you know? And so you keep seeing all these impressions, but you don't see any clicks. And so doing a post-QA is just this. And again, post-QA is not so much optimization. And if you want to have my professional opinion, you should always do a quick QA anyway of your setup before you start an optimization, okay? But part of your optimization can have QAing, but it's not the same thing. Okay, optimization is looking at the data and the insight, pulling reports and making decisions based on your KPI, based on the data that you're receiving. So it's performance-based decisions. QAing is just, let me make sure I'm setting up everything to ensure whatever we communicate with that client is as close as possible set up or implemented or is being executed correctly, okay? Here's a few things I wanted to share, and we'll end with this. Some pre-holiday checklist for your programmatic campaign. Why? Because I had so many of my friends, not only friends, but like people on LinkedIn complain or just share. I don't think it's a complaint, it's honestly a share. Within the community, I've had people reach out to me and say, you know, my agency or my job or my brand is asking me to be on calls during Thanksgiving or during the holiday. And I'm like, why? Even if you're in e-commerce, and I hope I'm not going to get any hate mail for this, but even if you're in e-commerce, there's no reason why your people should be working like this. There are some QA pre-holiday steps that needs to be implemented as a team to ensure that everybody can enjoy some time off with their family, okay? And have peace of mind, because peace of mind is really important. Because I remember, you know, not needing to be on call or to check the campaign on a holiday. But because I was so stressed that I forgot something, I would still like literally wake up at 5 a.m. on the holiday. Like I remember waking up at 5 a.m. one Christmas a few years back, checking on damn campaigns because I was just stressed the hell out that I had forgotten to activate a campaign or to schedule the placement in CM360 to start at a certain time and the other one to turn off, right? So by having those QA lists, and using those QA processes, you can let your team rest. You can take a nice, peaceful time off, okay, to enjoy some family or just enjoy yourself. And not have to stress about checking on a campaign. That's not fair. So if you're a hiring manager and you're asking your people to be on call, that's fucked up. Let me just say, okay? And I'm not gonna bleep this one out, okay? Like that's fucked up. It shouldn't be happening. You need to take responsibility and accountability and make sure that 2 weeks prior or 3 weeks prior or 2 days prior, that everybody in the agency, all hands on deck, verifying, QAing that all those campaigns are supposed to launch on a holiday or creative that are supposed to be rotating during that time are set up correctly, verified and all, okay? And you can have, and you know what? If you need to have somebody checking, it better be you and not, it should not be your team. It should be you, your manager. And you should have a report coming to you automated every day during this holiday to ensure that this did launch because I'm seeing impression. Oh, I'm not seeing this launch. Let me go check myself. Okay. Like that's not fair. That's not fair. Your people are doing a lot. You're stressing this talent that is those valuable employees because you don't take the time to understand their strength. Okay, because there's a lot of people that come up with QA documents even better than me, and I've been doing this for 10 years. And I've used theirs after creating my own because it makes so much more sense because they're so good at that, right? So you need to take responsibility and implement the systems needed so that your team doesn't have to be on call. And if somebody has to be on call, it has to be, it has to be you. And please don't make them feel guilty about taking a vacation or being off that day. That's not cool too. If you have access to LinkedIn, hopefully you do, or you're signed up to subscribe to my newsletter, then you have received that one. If you're not, don't worry. Again, in the job description, I'll have the checklist that I use in the blog that you can use. And this one is specific to a holiday, before holiday weekend or holiday vacation, okay? So it's 7 things to ensure your campaign are set before holiday weekend. So one, and again, it goes back to your QA document, budget checks. Like what are your budget checks? I actually worked for an agency in the past. They had QA, pre-launch QA list, post-launch QA list, and they had it was like almost like I'm going to call it that, like a holiday QA list that was specific to certain brands like e-commerce or something like that. And part of it had similar checklists. It was almost the same, but the holiday one was specific to like, did you make sure that, Christmas Day or whatever was set as that? So 7 things are as follows. The first one is checking your budget. You've heard me give example of how we've accidentally spent a monthly budget in one day. You don't want that. So you want to make sure that you are able to, you have that set up and updated. And sometimes we optimize and change pacing to ahead. So be careful. If you've optimized your campaign during a non-holiday season and you enter in a holiday season, just careful with that pacing setting, okay? Another thing that is actually the second part of the checklist here that I talk about is spacing. Is that that's exactly what I was mentioning. If you've optimized before in your change pacing, you might want to consider, depending on your industry, depending on your inventory availability and things like that. It's up to you to make the decision. The third thing you want to check is flight date. Oh, I giggled because I put fight date. I put fight date in the LinkedIn newsletter. Oh my gosh. I'm not even going to change it. Y'all know I'm talking about flight date. Maybe I was just in the fighting mood that day when I wrote this. So flight date should be at follow. No, it's not only like at the campaign level, it's like every single level. I give specific example here. Your placement, your ads, your creative, if it's in like CM360 or other ad servers, okay? That's really important. Why? Because I'm telling myself, but y'all better not, y'all not judging me, right? I'm not telling myself, but I remember serving 1 million impressions for grocery brands. Because the placement was on, the ad was off. Okay, if you're a CM360 person, you understand what I mean by there's a hierarchy in CM360 or DCM. There's the advertiser, of course, a partner and all that jazz, but then there's placement, and then there's the ad, and then there's the creative. Those are the bottom 3. Yeah, the placement was on, but the dang ad had a different end date and ended before the placement end date. And so we served all of those blank box, 1 million worth of it. And we discovered this after the 1 million impression, because after 1 million impression in that last week, or it was like in the span of 10 days, there was no clicks. But because I was rushing and I was so busy with other accounts and always being pulled in several decisions, I didn't catch it. I didn't catch it as easily. And you might be thinking like, what? Million impression with no clicks? Yeah, I didn't catch. Don't judge me. Anyway, I was trying to let you know. So that's why I said specific to the ad server, make sure that the flight dates are correct. The campaign, the insertion order, the line item, the ad group, depending on who controls the budget and the date, the creative assets, especially if it's third-party tags, any tracking tags, any pixel, you name it. So make sure you're really paying attention to your flight dates, okay? The creative messaging, if this is specifically if you have to rotate message in between days that, during the holidays, maybe it's something on like today is Christmas and we're offering 50%, or tomorrow's Christmas, last day to sign up to the program, something like that. The fifth thing you want to remember is the tactic. And the reason why I said the tactic is like, if you haven't in the last 3 weeks done any optimization, this is a good time prior to the holiday. That I'm not saying an hour before, a day before the holiday break, but at least a week before, it's a good time to just check on some of those performance and take that deeper dive, because then you can track some of the performance, but also you'll be able to have that peace of mind, like, oh no, I remember doing this last week, we're good. So the last two things I want to talk about is frequency capping. This one is one of those things that is super sexy to a marketer and to a brand. Do the due diligence to have frequency capping, especially during the holiday. Frequency cap is one of those metrics that is informative on how consumer are being reached and how we're engaging with consumer. And I'm going to borrow what Suraj at Acuity Ad said. He said that, it's not about engaging with the consumer or prospect client, it's about educating. And when you educate, there is a certain frequency that comes with it, but at the same time, you need to make sure that you're hitting them within the cap. So don't sleep on frequency. It's really important, especially in a pre-holiday season. You want to be more aggressive or you want to be less aggressive? It's up to you. You know your brand, but remember to utilize this metrics and update them. Lastly, it's going to be a performance check. And here's what I would say is that you have your KPIs, your performance KPIs, right? So take a note at where you stand. You should know those type of things again, if you're optimizing as you should. But sometimes shit happens. It's busy as hell. So make sure you check on your KPIs. And again, this should be done at least a week to 2 weeks before any holiday break, okay? If you're an overachiever, a week before or the week of the holiday break, send 1 to 3 insight points. And I really like this, and I've done that before and it really helped. So check on your performance, but pull 1 to 3 insight points to email the account management team and the client. This is the best way to offer peace of mind for your clients and the rest of the team, that nobody's going to harass you on Thanksgiving morning or Christmas morning or New Year's Eve day or whatever. So by doing that, it's literally like sending a pre-holiday email to everybody and saying something like this. I give this example. I'm going to read it out of the blog. Quick note to express gratitude in this season and to confirm the following. Campaign budget is pacing and running as scheduled, and we are 70% through the campaign and 80% of the budget has been exhausted as planned, as scheduled, as whatever. Costs are competitive during the holidays, but we've adjusted bids and frequency to remain as competitive as possible while remaining competitive in auction. I'm repeating myself. Our optimization have been focused on KPI X, and we are averaging Y at the moment. So this is where you're saying like, my CPA is averaging $150, where our KPI is 200, or our KPI is 125. Because especially if you're not meeting your KPI goal, then you want to say it ain't because of the holiday, but because of the holiday, we probably won't meet the KPI, or we might see the opposite trend. So this is where you talk about like whatever the client most care of, the amount of sales. Again, if it's a CPA, if it's a ROAS, if it's a reach impression, I don't know. The most important thing that they care about, and you should talk about this, even if it's ugly. And then in the case where there's new creative and new messaging in rotation, then this is when you say new creative messages have been scheduled to start and old creative will expire and end date X. It's a very, very short message for that reason. It's really just to offer peace of mind. And you're probably thinking, Hélène, I have a bunch of clients to do this for. It's going to take me a lot. Yes, do that extra step, because when you do this, when you want to focus on sending your client a short insight for peace of mind for them, you allow yourself that peace of mind as well, because now you actually checked your campaign. So make sure you do something like that for yourself and for your team. I think it's the best thing to do, and clients will remember that extra effort, trust me. I'll finish up really quick here, but I give some last tips, I would say, about retargeting. If you haven't really maximized retargeting, this is probably a good way to the time to test the retargeting, specifically like a cart abandoner, form abandoner. It shouldn't be the only strategy, okay? But it should definitely be tested. And this is definitely the time to test new creative messages, new landing page, things like that. Why not? I mean, you can have, and I said the bonus of the bonus is like you can pull a lookalike model or predictive model based on that one retargeting or that cart abandoner for future decision or for future strategy. Okay. And then the last thing I will say is that make sure you do maximize on those automated reporting. So again, for your own peace of mind, schedule a quick daily report to let you know, like, if all the creative, and pull it by very standard metrics, right? You're not trying to pull the full report here, but pull something really quick that can give you a quick glance. Everything is clicking through, there's impressions, there are some conversions, and the cost is around this, so that you can quickly check or really test the daily budget or see and things like that. You can assess how you're doing from a glance there. So those daily reports or automated reports can be very, very helpful, especially when you first launch a creative, and you can literally schedule that creative report, let's say, to come to your email a few hours after it started. Some DSP will have some data already, even though it's lower. But that's why you want to create, that's why you want to schedule those automated reports, so that you don't have to log into your campaign. But with that all to say, December can get really distracted, but Q4 can be really overwhelming as a whole and stressful, because we don't have those systems set up. So do yourself a favor, spend some time to create those internal systems for yourself, for the rest of your team. Be the leader your team needs, create those documents. I will also add some template media plan and media maps, and where there's a bunch of QA with it, so that you can see what I've created, and then you can remix it, to your need, or based on the DSP, or based on your client's needs or campaigns. Okay. So this is it. I hope you found this helpful. I know you're going to find this helpful. I'm calling you out on a few things, but it's with love. I know you're capable of doing this. I know that, and you are worthy and deserving of taking some time off for your team without feeling guilty. Okay. Whatever you've done this year, it's a win. There are many, many wins, even if there are some lessons learned, because I won't call them failure. They're all lessons learned. So kudos to you. I will talk to you next week. And then if nobody told you already, you're amazing. Go on and live your life. And remember to really celebrate the small wins, because that's how we develop gratitude. That's how we develop a gratitude mindset. And I promise you, that's going to help your energy. It's going to help your productivity. And I know I'm just like rambling right now, but trust and believe, if you do this, it's going to be amazing. So go on and live your best life. And then I will talk to you all next week.